welcome to the podcast, Luke.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Before we dive a little bit deeper into Two Pints Deep and what it is exactly that you do, I just wondered if you could give us a bit of background around how you came to forming Two Pints Deep, and what motivated you to start this journey.
Of course. So it was back in 2017 that I graduated from university. I was doing sports science at the University of Birmingham. I'd done that for 3 years, which was a brilliant experience. And after university, my dream was to go and play football abroad. So I had dreams of America. However, in my final year, I snapped my ankle just before the trials. And so, unfortunately, I had a little look at how much it costs to go to university without a scholarship in the States, and I decided against it. So I graduated from university and decided, like no other person who graduates from university does, to go over to Australia to try and play football over there semi-professionally. So contacted a few teams, went over there, managed to get a contract with a club in just outside Melbourne called Springvale White Eagles. During that time, however, back in the UK, my mum was suffering from cancer. And towards the end of my second year in Australia, I got a call from my dad to say that things had escalated, sort of looking at the most recent scan, and that I should drop everything and come home immediately. So it was quite tough news to take for myself in the middle of a season. So I had to just drop out of the team, drop out of the job that I was in, get home as soon as possible. So I managed to get back, had about just over a week with my mum before she unfortunately passed away. And this was a time in my life that I'd just gone from living what seemed like my perfect life over in Australia, playing football for a living, living with my mates on the beach, to then my worst nightmare, coming back and living in rural Lancashire with my dad, who was grieving himself, and consistently seeing the life that I used to live on Instagram through the mates. It was really hard to process and take, all in the midst of loss as well. And I didn't react well. I thought the best thing I could do is block things out, not talk about things at all, and just try and be there for my dad, try and be strong, and all of these manly, I guess, what defines to be a man, these toxic masculinity, which I'm sure we'll dig into a little bit. All these characteristics I played up to without really thinking that it's something that I was doing. I just wanted to be all right for everyone else rather than look inside and deal with what was going on. So that lasted about 6 to 9 months. I went through quite a lot of issues: depression, social anxiety, gambling issues, before finally, I like to say the word erupting, because it was a bit of an erupt. I let everything out at a mate's party after a couple of drinks, when I was 2 pints deep. And that led to a conversation that completely changed my life, but also changed how we spoke about things within a group of lads and our group of mates as well. So I noticed in the following year, when something else kind of disrupted my life within my family, I was much better at dealing with it, because I'd created then pathways to be able to have conversations when I'm struggling. And that then inspired me to create the community and hopefully now charity in the next few months that is 2 Pints Deep.
I absolutely love the name 2 Pints Deep, because I think it's so accurate. I don't think you realize until you stop and reflect, it is actually, it kind of just loosens you up a little bit, but also it's that creative connection of being happy and enjoying being around people.
Yeah, for sure. And we didn't get lucky with the name. It's always something that I tended to feel after a couple of pints, but it's important that it's the time of 2 pints. It's not just a passing thing. It's not just having another pint, sitting down for that period of time. It gives you the ability to actually be able to ask the questions, deep dive into conversation. The aim of what we're trying to do is remove the need for those 2 pints, because we don't want to say you have to have 2 pints to talk about your mental health, but we wanted to try something new, because we are in a crisis in the UK, especially for lads, and finding ways to encourage conversation. So yeah, we're really happy with the name, and have got big plans in the future for how we can build some fun resources around the name and the concept.
Yeah, amazing. I think so much needs to be done to facilitate conversation around guys and actually get us comfortable with talking about our emotions and our problems. And as you alluded to earlier, not feeling like you're a burden by unloading.
Mm-hmm.
Processing emotion, I think, is a really tough one, and perhaps something just to pause and reflect on. And I think a lot of the time showing emotion is pitched as being the antithesis of being a man, that showing emotion is weakness, and that the only real emotions you're allowed to feel are anger and happiness. Why do you think it is that, we're so, don't want to be so harsh, but emotionally stunted as men?
Yeah, it's fascinating because I don't think anyone has the answer. There's plenty of answers, but it all comes down to the men before us and the men before them. I mean, we're 2 generations away from men who went to war and saw things that they never wanted to speak about. Whether there's anything that came back from that point, stunted personal and emotional stories or things that they've witnessed and that passed down to them, I don't know. But there's definitely, you can see it across the whole gender, which is fascinating, really. And it's something for guys especially that has to be learned now. And it's not instincts. I always think back to when I was younger, and I talk about this in my in the talks that I do in sort of corporate settings or clubs or communities, anything like that. And my sleepovers were very different to my sister's when I was younger. And I used to either play sport, watch films, play video games, or go on the internet. That was the 4 things that I would do on repeat. My sister would stay up all night talking, and I just used to blow my mind and be like, what do you have to talk about? Like, what is there? Like, it sounds awfully boring that you're just sat there talking about the 5 things you like about each other and 5 things you change. It sounds awful, but I think looking back on it and in reflection, they're building that conversational element and talking about stuff that they may not be, I guess, emotionally happy about at times, or things that they want to work on. And it's built a skill set that maybe lads don't quite have yet. We're always doers rather than thinkers and reflectors. And the nature of that is impacted in so many things, I think, across sport as well and across school for sure.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think men are very quick to act on emotion or feelings. I think we're always looking to solve a problem rather than actually acknowledge that there is a problem is that first step of finding kind of help and moving into, a more positive space. I know we talked about there, we're kind of a few generations of people that have been to war. Like, I've had like male figures in my life who've struggled with some elements of mental health. And I remember having a conversation with one of them of, like, perhaps you should try therapy. And to quote him, he was basically said, why don't you take me out the back and shoot me? If I need therapy, then, I'm redundant in my role, which I think is just, such a powerful thought. There's such a negative stigma attached to therapy. And I think that's perhaps something that's changing and evolving now with our generations that are actually starting to embrace that it's the same as going to the gym, of you need to be mentally fit as well as physically fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess male roles back in the day were more doing, fixing, almost a little bit like a racehorse. If the racehorse can't run, it's redundant, like you said there, and that's their mindset with it all. But I think that the new roles that masculinity, like roles within masculinity that now offers, like there's a whole spectrum of who a man can be, and I think that's how we're being able to really open up to it. So it's great to see, but lots more work to do within it, I think.
Yeah, I think that I know you use this line on your social media a lot, but I love it. I smiled and got on with it because that's what men do. And I think that really just hits the nail on the head. We're so hesitant to stop and process emotion and too keen to just focus on the next thing. It's almost like a protection mechanism as well. Of we're trying to stay strong for people around us, but you actually can't be strong if you're the one that's in need sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a problem across lots of different ages, backgrounds, of almost feeling like if I stop and think, what will happen? And a lot of men have that mindset that are stuck within issues. And I definitely found that in my own journey and story. And I think that's what gambling did for me, to be honest with you. And it was something to distract me and take me away from actually stopping and thinking and assessing what was going on in my head. It was something that was at the end of my fingertips. It was really accessible. It boosted all my tingling and excitement and anger, and it took me away from the other emotions that were going on. And yeah, we just don't stop and think and do anything and reflect, really. And I think it shows in a lot of ways, gambling just being one of them.
Yeah, and gambling, alcohol, are just so easily accessible and so integrated into our lives as well. If that happens to be the coping mechanism that you fall on instead of it being exercise or confiding in a friend, then unfortunately it can have quite devastating outcomes. One of the things I guess that we're obviously aware of is a loneliness epidemic in men. Obviously women are very good naturally at maintaining relationships, but that's sadly something that definitely fades with men as we progress through life. I saw a stat the other day that said nearly a third of men said that they don't have any close friends or any friends at all, which is a very worrying statistic. And even those that do have friends, one in only half of them feel that they're able to confide about their problems.
Yeah.
How do you think we can start to change that narrative and encourage conversation amongst men and build relationships that are a little bit more than surface level?
Yeah, it's frightening. We're the most connected we've ever been, yet the loneliest we've ever been as a population. And I think this crosses to all genders and sexes, that because of the pandemic and other things as well, especially, I think it's been highlighted over the past few years in particular, that we're now looking down to have a conversation rather than looking up. And we're losing some of those skills. And the new generation of people coming through university, coming through schools at the moment, that there's actually been a decrease in the population, the younger population who are drinking, which is fascinating, but also an increase in loneliness and isolation. So is there something that we're missing in terms of that human connection? I think that's really important, the human connection element. I'm a big advocate for communities, getting people together in real life to discuss things. And it doesn't have to be discussing your mental health or discussing how you feel all the time. It's just having that consistency in your life of getting together with someone and having a conversation that goes a little bit deeper than the surface level. That can be about the football, that can be about the way that you feel, that can be about music or politics. It's just really, really important, I think, that we create time, space for these type of conversations. And it really is where Two Pints Deep we want to go. We want to occupy spaces that men already feel comfortable. They already attend. Is it the football match that you go to every week? Is it the pub that you go to every Friday and Saturday that's local to yourself up in Sunderland, Newcastle, wherever you're based? Is it work? Is it a music venue following one of your favourite artists? How can we create depth of conversation within spaces that men already feel comfortable to allow that connection to improve? Because at the moment, I certainly found it within my friendship group, but when I had that initial conversation and erupted with my own feelings, two of the lads spoke up for the first time as well. And the power of one person breaking the barrier, allowing other people through, is huge. It's massive. And it's almost getting to a point now, with the statistics being as they are, that it's important that we do it for ourselves, but it's as important that we do it for our mates across the table as well. And it's important that we, even if we feel happy, sad, excited, we start talking about our emotions just a little bit more, because it could be that gateway into finding out something about a friend or a part of the community that you belong in that you never knew. And it's at the point now that it could save lives.
How would you encourage people to, say, for example, they're struggling, they're not feeling too great, there's something going on in their lives and they feel that, that they're tackling this all alone? How would you encourage someone to seek that support or make that space?
Yeah, there's lots of different ways I'd say to start. My first one would always be write it down in your notes, in a journal, anything you can, even if it's just words. It doesn't have to be Dear Diary or anything that kind of like structured or anything like that. It can just be words, feelings, songs that got emotion with you, and but you're putting pen to paper. And what that will do, and really helped me in my initial sort of stages being able to open up, is almost help you create a script that allows you to build confidence around the way that you feel for when you do take the jump and speak to someone. You know it better. It's not just one-off feelings that you're trying to remember, and the emotions aren't getting too much within the conversation. You've got stuff that you've written down. As well, it's really important to figure out and visualize who your person would be. Which person do you feel most comfortable with talking about something like this? It doesn't have to be your partner. It doesn't have to be your boss at work. It can be someone who maybe you haven't been in touch with them for a little bit and you want to get back in touch with them. It's just visualizing who you feel most comfortable with having this depth of conversation and this type of conversation, but also what environment you'd like to have it in. Providing this visualization of where you want this conversation to happen if you are struggling really helped me to be able to deal with it. And then I had the ability to be able to then almost check my notes and make sure that conversation was right for me, and I was ticking everything off. But I think what's really, really important is that we don't expect too much of ourselves immediately. Be patient with yourself, be patient with the conversation. It can just be delving one little bit deeper than you are already. It doesn't have to be a consistent, like, you don't have to tell them everything. Especially in January, we're real, like, human nature is like, I'm going to completely change my life. I'm going to completely change who I am. Dry Jan, I'm never drinking again. I'm going to go to the gym every day. And then it falls off because our expectations are too high. Put your expectations as lower within sort of breaking these barriers that are so hard to break, but give yourself a pat on the back and give yourself a bit of credit when you do break them.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's all about those small incremental steps a lot of the time as well. It's about taking that first step. It doesn't have to be a big first step, but a lot of people wait for the perfect moment or wait for the right person or the right time. And, the sooner you broach the subject and the sooner you start to make the connection, the sooner it's going to help you, and you're going to be able to hopefully realize some of the benefits of, sharing with someone else.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
How would you say your relationship has changed with your friends over time? Would you say that it's made you closer?
We're a lot closer than we were, but without even realizing that we didn't know that there was this element to a friendship, I think, really now. And we hold responsibility in checking in on each other. Because it's something I live and breathe now, that we're keeping an eye on each other's sort of signs, symptoms, changes in behavior. And because I'm producing the content, all the lads are so supportive that they're sharing it on their stories all the time as well. Conversations are coming from all over the place with not just our friendship group, but their friends as well, which I think is really, really important. And it has really changed the ability for me to be able to speak, for sure. And I know that's the same with a lot of my friends. And now I have friends which is really nice, that kind of search me out for this type of conversation because they know it's what I do. It can sometimes get a little bit tiring when it's all of them, but I would never not welcome that type of conversation, because if they feel like I'm someone that they could speak to before going to someone a little bit more professional, then that's what this is all about. That's what 2 Pints Deep is. It's not 2 Pints Deep is never the destination. It's always something that starts a journey for you. It starts a night. It starts a conversation. And I never want to create 2 Pints Deep as somewhere that people stop and enjoy, because that's not what it's built for. We want to show you what else is out there, to go and get connection that's healthier habits, to go and have further conversations with people who genuinely know what they're doing and can help you further than what I can as a bloke that's just been through it myself. So yeah, a lot has changed, but definitely all for the better.
Great to hear. And so what sort of things are you starting to do with 2 Pints Deep to, act as that springboard? How are you bringing this conversation to the people that need it?
Yeah, so we've previously done nationwide beer mat campaigns, so targeting places that men feel confident they gather, to be able to try and encourage conversations within those spaces. So we did one a couple of years ago, and then we did one this summer, just gone, for the Euros. So based around football and creating conversation there, and that went down really well. So that's something that we're looking to push on into the new year. But also, we are a signposting charity, so we're not a place to come where you get the therapy, or you can have a conversation with me as someone that's been through it before. But our end goal is to try and connect you to somewhere local to yourself that you can continue a conversation. That does not have to be therapy. That does not have to be you forking out 40 quid a month or a week to be able to go to somewhere or something that like benefits your wellness. It could be a run club. It could be somewhere you can go and get connection and further and have these conversations with people and go out and do something, I guess, that's healthier for you and a healthier habit than being in a pub. So at the moment, we're building that concept whilst I go in and do corporate talks. And then I give them, after the corporate talks, our follow-up resource always contains what's local to you right now. What's the run club? What's walking clubs? What are free therapy groups you could attend? What's free men's group that you could attend? And really trying to break the barrier of accessibility within mental health for men. Because I think looking back on my own journey, I know my friends, some of my friends' journey is as well. We've not known where to go. And we really want to change that at 2 Pints Deep and be the start of your journey and tell you where you can go so you can then have choice in your journey, rather than if someone was to have a negative experience of therapy, it's very with a man's concept to be like, try therapy, doesn't work. But what we want to give you choice in that journey and be like, okay, try this one and try this one, and here it is. And you get to build your own journey in this rather than, I guess, falling at the first hurdle, like unfortunately so many men do.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important point. Is it's especially with mental health, it's definitely not a one size fits all. Some people, find their own space, whether that's going to the local gym or going for a walk or they go for a beer with their mates. It's very much about finding what works for you, and the same with, I guess, dealing with and kind of processing any of the symptoms of what you're experiencing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the perfect statement for it. It's no one size fits all. And the problem of suicide, the problem of mental health is completely different in each area, all around the UK and all around the world. For example, the problem is going to be very different up in Carlisle, that's right on the border, generally more working class town. It's more remote, less transport links than it is in London. So how do we go into that with not trying to fix the problem, but trying to understand the problem first? And I think that's where a lot of these brilliant charities who provide solutions, they miss a lot of people because they come from the solution and reach down. What we really, really want to do is do a lot of work, resource, education, and a lot of understanding of the information around the problem, and work up, push as many people as we can who are in the pubs, who I guess have a bad experience of their mental health currently, push them up and show them what resources are available. Being from the Northwest myself, from a working class town, it's really, really important to me that we are a size that fits as many as possible, rather than being specific and picking out, I guess, a solution and a way of doing things.
One thing that I did want to talk to you about is that one of my previous guests brought up was around the 6 stages of grief that exist. So for anyone that doesn't know, David Kessler came up with 6 stages of grief. The first one is denial, then you move to anger, and then bargaining. So kind of what would you give to have something back? Depression, acceptance. But the 6th stage is finding meaning from your experience. Would you say that founding 2 Pints Deep is your way of creating meaning from and everything that's happened?
Absolutely. I think the first 4 happened for me as kind of like a cycle that I just kept going around, and it wasn't one after the other. It was all mixed. It was anger, then it was bargaining, then it was just a complete whirlwind after you lose someone. But I got my acceptance from creating 2 Pints Deep, absolutely, for sure. If my mum hadn't passed away, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. That's an absolute fact, because I wouldn't have gone through to the extremity of what I did and be inspired so much from such a derailing experience to be able to come away and create something. So I'm sitting here today because of what happened to me, and that's absolutely given me acceptance. So in terms of that meaning, I don't think there's a better motivation to do something, really. It's a fire that will keep burning. And also, I've come to terms with the fact that it keeps my mum in my head a lot of the times, because she is the motivation behind it all. I know it sounds a bit movie quotey, that and whatnot, but it's a genuine motivation for myself that I found. And yeah, although if you're offering bargaining, I'd give everything back in to have it back selfishly. It has given me acceptance and deeper meaning within what's happened, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think it's so great that you've taken something, such a horrible and negative experience, and managed to flip it on its head and use it as a vehicle to drive impact. And I'm sure there's many people out there that will see the message and hopefully will find a way out of whatever difficult situation that they find themselves in.
Yeah, I hope so. And I have a lot of conversations with people that message the page who have had similar experiences, and often they're not really. I think this is what releasing my story on our TikTok has allowed people to do, and see inside and see what's actually happened and what's gone on behind this brand. But it allows them to associate with my story rather than the brand at times. Some people just don't get it. They may not drink, But I've had a lot of, for example, women and other people follow the page and message in just to be like, I've lost someone recently and I really get this journey and inspired by your journey. And that's been as brilliant as being able to create something that helps, hopefully, many, that even if you don't fall in the category of who we're trying to help, there's an ulterior help behind what's created this brand in the journey as well. And loss, and unfortunately it's inevitable for us all, loss and grief, and dealing with it isn't always the hardest, it isn't always the easiest thing to do. So yeah, it's multi-pronged for sure.
I think the fact that your content is very personable, it tells your story, which is an incredibly brave thing to do, is to be so open and vulnerable that people can connect with it. For example, I've had my own kind of struggles with mental health, and as soon as you see your content, it is very relatable, being so raw and honest, and that itself will inspire a lot of people, whether they take action immediately, but it definitely connects on a deeper and more personal level than sitting behind a brand would. Personally, I love your content. Keep making it, keep doing what you're doing, because it's definitely something that needs to be changed.
Thank you.
We're a long way off it, but
yeah, well, I appreciate that because a lot of time and effort goes into it. So it's nice to hear that. It's almost like a therapy for me at times as well, making it, which has been nice. It's been therapeutic. There was some stuff initially when we launched a few years ago that I held back on in terms of information, but one of the biggest barriers, I think, for men especially to opening up is trust. Who do I trust with this information? And if I'm not bearing all, how can I expect other people to as well? And I think that's the major takeaway and motivation behind it, that just open up and people might find little nuggets that they can associate with, and that's even better, and it's going to help us on our journey and help us with our mission as much as possible.
We alluded to earlier, you also quit your job to full-time pursue Two Pints Deep. How's that process been? And if someone out there is looking to do a similar thing, or is feeling inspired to take action, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, it's been crazy, anxiety filled, not having a sort of solid income, living in London, especially with the cost of living and stuff like that, has been difficult, but also has kept me ticking on, and it's been a motivating factor for me as well, for sure. But this is a brand and this is a community that I built for over 2 years before I quit my full-time job, and I think that's the first nugget of advice I'd give to people. Like, I quit my job because it got to a point that I couldn't do both, not because I wanted to. And there are some stories that you hear where people just quit their job and start something the next day and it booms and it's amazing. They've got such a good idea. But it definitely helped me with my confidence and my anxiety, that of understanding that this was a concept that people believed in for 2 years before I actually decided to go fully into it. That would be my first nugget of advice for sure. Have some sort of understanding of the brand and your direction before you quit the job, because it'll allow you that security and that confidence in the fact that you've got a good idea and it works. But it's been a roller coaster, and self-employed life is completely different to working with someone else. My boss is a little bit nicer to me now. But I was in a career in recruitment that I didn't really have the spark for anymore. So it's been unbelievable to be able to wake up every day and do something that I'm really passionate about, and excited to see where it goes, really. But know that I've got a degree, I've got experience, I've got management experience in other industries now, that if, lo and behold, something was to happen and Two Pints Deep was to be no more, I could go back to be doing what I was doing. And I've got that fallback, which again gives me confidence that there is a life beyond Two Pints Deep if there needs to be.
At the end of each episode, we ask everyone the kind of same questions. And the first of those questions is, who is someone in your life that inspires you, either past or present?
Good question. So for this one, it's actually very much present. I alluded to it a little bit earlier that things went wrong again in my family, and I was able to deal with it much better. And I was alluding to my brother-in-law, who's called Andrew. And Andrew was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma, which is currently incurable cancer at the age of 25, only a few years ago, which rocked the family. As you can imagine, the word cancer to us we'd associated with death. And only a couple of years or a year after losing my mum, we heard this news and we thought, God, we are just like riddled, we're doomed. But in terms of inspiration, this is a bloke that has been an incredible support to our family, but such a shining light with how he's dealt with what he's currently continuing to go through. And he's taught me a lot. He's a very present person. He enjoys the little things in life, the little moments, which I tend to get lost in because I'm always thinking about the next thing or things that have happened before, comparison. Andrew's he loves his coffee. And if he's sat there having a coffee, you can see him just being like really enjoying that coffee at that moment. And it's been really inspirational to see him deal with what he's been going through, and also while supporting my sister, our family and us, and they welcomed their first child last year as well, which has just been an absolute godsend for our family as well. So he is definitely my biggest inspiration. He never gives in, and he never bats an eyelid. You wouldn't believe he's going through what he is. And that's not always a good thing because you do need to talk about your feelings, but he does that as well. And he's been brilliant for us all. So yeah, he definitely inspires me a lot.
Amazing. Yeah, I think there's definitely something about finding joy in the small moments in life and not just the big celebrations. Yeah, it's an incredibly skill to have, but people that master it, I've got so much respect for them.
Yeah, I get very jealous of them people.
Lovely stuff. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Your story is kind of nothing short of inspiring, and it's been great to hear it. So yeah, thank you very much.